This episode, Airshow Dispatches heads to China for the Sichuan Airshow 2019 in Guanghan. Guanghan is an aviation city, home to the largest flying school in the world. A passion for flight comes with the territory, making Guanghan the natural host of one of China's largest airshows. This year's show was the biggest yet, headlined by the Baltic Bees jet team and featuring pyrotechnic displays for the first time, including the global stars making their world debut as a 5-ship team. And the Chinese aviation sector gets a look in too, not least with a rare appearance by the ARJ21. This year's airshow coincided with China's 70th anniversary, a double celebration that doubtless contributed to the festival atmosphere among the 100,000 strong crowd, who enjoyed 35 hours of flying displays over 5 days. This is our pick of the action. Welcome to Guanghan Airport, just north of the city of Chengdu, and to the Sichuan Airshow 2019. The Sichuan Airshow was one of the largest international airshows in China this year, with a full and varied flying display. Roger Steele is the flying display director up in the control tower, and now cleared for takeoff is the first act of our programme, the Global Stars. This is the Global Star's first 5-ship display, and it's very different to the 4-ship routine we saw at the Chengdu Airshow in Series 1. The team is once again composed of Mark Jeffries, Chris Burkett, Chris Heames and Steve Carver, all from the UK. But they're joined this time in the 5th aircraft by Joel Haskey of the Red Baron team from Australia. And we're very grateful to Joel for providing the excellent GoPro footage which gives us a first-person view of this display. Global Stars are one of the UK's best travelled civilian teams. During the summer they have a busy season of displays around northwest Europe, but they also fly regularly in China and India, as well as several other locations around the world. And in fact, right after the Sichuan Airshow, the team headed off to the Yaocheng International General Aviation Show, also in China, where they flew as a 4-ship, and they'll be displaying in China at least twice more in the coming months as well. Splitting down into 2 elements, a 3-ship and a 2-ship. And now both elements approach show centre from opposite sides for a manoeuvre called the carousel. Formation stall turns from the 2-ship. The Global Stars have quite a large pool of aircraft at their disposal. In this display we see one extra 260, an Extra 300S, which is the single-seat version of the original Extra 300, and 3 Extra 300Ls. The 300L is the most popular version of the Extra, with 2 seats, a low-mounted wing, and improved ailerons, which allow for an increased roll rate of 400 degrees per second. Although it's the Extra 300S we see here performing this rather spectacular manoeuvre. Next up is Blue Cerce, flying in the lead. Francesco Martoni, a former Italian Air Force colonel who flew the MB339 and Fiat G91. On the left, Gianfranco Ciotto, an F-86 and F-104 fighter pilot, later an airline captain with Alitalia. On the right, Tommaso Raponi, and at the back of the formation, another F-104 and F-86 fighter pilot, Bruno Servadi. My favourite fact about the team, all 4 of those pilots are in their 70s and 80s. They're flying the Fly Latino FL100RG, which is a remake of the Italian-built Storm RG ultralight, fitted with 100 horsepower Rotax 912 engines. One aircraft in from the left, another from the right for an opposition pass. And the second pair of aircraft approach show centre for a split. And finally, in line abreast down the show line with coloured wingtip smoke. Here's something very rare at any airshow, a Chengdu Airlines Comac ARJ21-700 taking off for a brief display. The ARJ is the first Chinese-designed jet airliner, but the project hasn't gone at all smoothly. The precise, up-to-date numbers are quite hard to verify, but since its first flight in 2008, it seems around 20 ARJ21s have been built. There are, however, well over 350 firm orders already from operators in at least 5 countries. Another Chinese act now, the Comac helicopter with its very unique dual rotor design. The 2 sets of rotors actually overlap, which means they need to run at exactly the same speed. And you may wonder how the aircraft can yaw as well, because that would usually be done by introducing a speed differential between 2 counter-rotating sets of rotors, or using a tail rotor, which the Comac hasn't got. What you can't really see in this footage is that the rotor blades actually have trim tabs on them which function almost like ailerons, and that's how the aircraft can yaw, although on the basis of this display at least it doesn't seem to do so very rapidly. Rolling for takeoff all the way from Latvia, the Baltic Bees jet team. Baltic Bees' second time in China, and on both occasions the poor visibility caused real problems for the team. They only managed to fly the full routine once in the whole show this year. On other occasions they were limited to formation aerobatics only, or to a simple solo display. The team are based at Stromala Airport in Latvia, where, by the way, they host the Wings Over Baltics airshow, which featured in Series 1 of this programme, a really excellent airshow. And the team actually flew all the way from Latvia through Russia, Kazakhstan and China in 10 separate hops to get to the Sichuan Airshow. They were the only foreign team who flew to Sichuan. The rest disassembled their aircraft and shipped them out to China. Such is the difficulty of overflying this country in a civilian aircraft. After the show, the Baltic Bees will remain in China, and they've got at least one display planned there for the 2020 show season. The team now starts the second half of their show with a downwards bomb burst. Baltic B5, Valery Sobolov now pulls into the vertical. With the call sign Godfather, he's a former MiG-15 and MiG-17 pilot. He's now the solo pilot with the Baltic Bees, flying this very dramatic Lomshevac, tumbling the aircraft through all its axes at the top of this vertical climb. The Baltic Bees are currently one of only 4 jet aerobatic teams in the world to perform such a manoeuvre. Valery once again takes centre stage, this time crossing with the main formation. And now the team approach for the final break. Back to the lighter aircraft now, and a very graceful display by a quartet of Pioneer 330 ultralights of the Italian Pioneer team, displaying with pyrotechnics streaming from the wingtips. Unfortunately, all the participating aircraft were limited to displaying during the daylight hours, which did slightly reduce the impact of these displays. They were effectively daytime fireworks shows, but the smog actually worked to the show's advantage in this regard, because it meant the sky was starting to get quite dark even before the sun had set, and you can see that the display was still quite effective. Founded in 2005, the Pioneer team is said to be the world's best travelled civilian aerobatic team, having performed in at least 22 different countries, and that includes displays in Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, and Africa as well. They too now split into smaller sections for the second part of their display. And now in for a final burst of pyrotechnics with their closing manoeuvre. Global Stars return this time for their pyro show. The Global Stars last year became the world's first unlimited aerobatic 4-ship team to display with pyrotechnics, and their display at Sichuan this year was probably the first 5-ship pyrotechnic air display in the world. The display routine for the pyrotechnic show starts off quite similarly to that of the day show, but things change up a bit towards the end. In a moment, 2 pilots peeling off at the end of this loop, leaving the 3-ship formation to fly staggered runs down what they call a pyro pylon run. And the final display of the day is the Aerosparx display team. Rob Barsby takes the lead, Guy Westgate sticking to him like glue during these formation loops, and all of this is achieved in 2 Grob 109B motor gliders, each producing less than 100 horsepower. These GoPro cameras provide an amazing insight into this pyrotechnic extravaganza. There are almost certainly no other formation teams that can carry such an enormous quantity of pyrotechnics per aircraft. It's usually enough for a continuous, unbroken display of around 8 minutes, although in this case Aerosparx are letting off a full load of fireworks in just 2 or 3 minutes. LED lights down the fuselage as well, coloured smoke streaming from the wingtips and trailing edge. And all of this is controlled by a bespoke computer system on both aircraft, which helps reduce the pilot's workload during the display and also improve the safety of the performance. And with this final pass, the Aerosparx display team conclude not just their display, but also our look back at the Sichuan Airshow 2019. Next time, Airshow Dispatches heads to Australia for the first time for the Edinburgh Airshow in Adelaide. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us for this look back at the Sichuan Airshow 2019. From me, Adam Landau, it's goodbye for now.